which brings us to the next highest level, the guy that everyone considers the man. Certainly, unbelievably to me, you picked my favorite Frank Sinatra song. And there's a zillion of them. But Frank Sinatra doing One for My Baby just knocks me out. As far as telling a story, I guess this was in the Rita, what's his girlfriend?
Ava Gardner?
Ava Gardner, period, I think.
Oh, well, that's what people say.
I think so. Because, it certainly doesn't sound like he's just singing a song. It sounds like he's really living
he's definitely
this.
got,
really.
He's got somebody in mind.
Yeah, somebody in mind. And,
it's not just random.
Yeah, this is a hell of a way to do a song, man. So
it's funny.
Talk a little bit about Frank.
Well, you mentioned the second Mrs. Sinatra, Ava Lavinia Gardner, from
North Carolina.
Exactly, Grabtown, North Carolina, but you won't find it on the map, as she used to say. Yes, that is totally true. But at the same time, I point out that if Ava Gardner had broken your heart or my heart, we couldn't express it like that. You know?
And had broken your heart for a Spanish bullfighter.
Yeah, even so, we couldn't express it the way Sinatra does.
And you can't send your family over there to do anything to him.
Exactly. It's funny. The Sinatra's least favorite person in the world was a gentleman by the name of Mitch Miller that produced some records with him in the early 50s. And to give Mitch some credit, the way he put it was, it wasn't just the fact that Sinatra had all this emotion and that, he was going through this rough period when, he had supposedly there was a suicide attempt and really was at the end of his rope. And but he had the craftsmanship to put it into his music. And that's the thing, because even if Sinatra had a great week, even if he was like on top of the world, he could still go out there and sing a sad song and break your heart.
Yeah.
And he had that on call,
Yeah. But I actually felt sorry for Frank on this song.
Oh, really? You do?
I did. And normally I'm not feeling sorry for Frank.
No, normally he's not a person that you feel sorry, you feel sympathetic for.
Right, exactly.
But he puts himself into that character.
Whoa.
And when he would do this on stage, I'm sure you saw him do it live, he would not be Frank Sinatra anymore.
Yeah.
He would be this character.
That guy.
The guy in the song.
Yeah.
And it would just, all of a sudden there'd be a totally different person standing up on stage.
Yeah.
I always say that Sinatra was the single greatest combination of the greatest actor who ever lived and the greatest musician who ever lived. It's like Richard Burton, Itzhak Perlman were the same person.
Yeah.
And he's always both at the same time.
I agree. Who interprets a lyric better than Frank?
No, there's nobody. There's nobody who really brings it to life.
Right.
And in a way, he was so much the gold standard of that after Frank, there was nobody who could outdo him.
Yeah.
So I think to me that's part of the reason why the culture went in an opposite direction. The next thing to happen after Sinatra was Elvis, who was completely different. Who wasn't trying to interpret great songs in the same way that Sinatra was.
And then Bob Dylan, who decided to
and people,
flip it all together.
Exactly. Because Sinatra took that concept of interpretation to the end,
as
far as it could possibly go.
Can you do?
Yeah, there was nothing left.
Yeah.
And there have been great people since then. Both Mel Torme and Tony, are 10 years younger than Sinatra.
That's right.
And they found their own wonderful things to do. And there are other singers that sound more like him, like Jack Jones or Steve Lawrence and people like that. And they also find their own wonderful things to do. But nobody was going to take the whole thing and do it better than Sinatra did.
Right. And, jazz and drinking have a long and storied marriage.
Yes.
Going way back in time. We just got through listening to Cocktails for
It's
Two.
quite this
and now
is true.
We're going to have Frank drunk at the bar at 3 o'clock in the morning.
This is the aftermath of all those cocktails.
This is what happens when you had one too many. Okay, One for My Baby, Frank Sinatra.
It's 2:45. There's no one in the place except you and me. So set 'em up, Joe. I got a little story I think you should know. We're drinking, my friend, to the end of a brief episode. Make it one for my baby and one more for the road. I got the routine, put another nickel in the machine. Feeling so bad, can't you make the music easy and sad? I could tell you a lot, but you've gotta be true to your code. Just make it one for my baby and one more for the road. You'd never know it, but buddy, I'm a kind of poet, and I got a lot of things I'd like to say. And when I'm gloomy, won't you listen to me till it's talked away? Well, that's how it goes. And Joe, I know you're getting anxious to close. And thanks for the cheer. I hope you didn't mind my bending your ear. But this torch that I found, it's gotta be drowned, or it soon might explode. So make it one for my baby and one more for the road. The long, it's so long. The long, very long.
That, to me, one of the most amazing things is Sinatra's endings. There's a patented signature Sinatra endings. Judy Garland or Tony Bennett, if they were to do that song, they would end with "and one more for the road," like a big belt climax.
Mm-hmm.
Sinatra, he will belt as he comes to the climax. When he gets to the point, "this torch that I found," and then he goes up and starts to sing it, very declamatory. But he never ends that way. He always has this kind of big emotional climax, and then at the end of the record, he just gets smaller and smaller and just fades away. And he does that on a swing number as well as on a ballad. It's like a classic Sinatra signature to end like that.
Fabulous. So while we're in the sad
we are in the sad mood.
We're going to get even sadder.
Oh, it gets sadder.
We're going to get so sad that you don't even need to be drinking to be sad.
We're beyond drinking.
Yeah, this is like, this is all about fruit, and it's kind of strange. And
that's a different kind of sad.
It's completely, totally sad. And nobody can sing sad more sadly than Billie Holiday.
Well, this was a particularly vivid illustration of Billie Holiday, what she could do. This was a song that somebody brought to her, and it describes a very specific situation in poetic terms. It's never concrete. She never comes out and says exactly what it is that's going on. It's never laid out in black and white. But the way she shades the lyrics, the way she puts out all these little nuances, and the way she phrases it and drops the notes and positions it rhythmically, she tells the story, and you see in your mind what is going on, even though the lyric never. It would be one thing, of course, to see, actually, have an image of it, like on a video. And another thing, even if a lyric specifically described the image, which it doesn't do.
Right.
But just the fact that she gives you all these clues and lets them put it together in your own mind.
Yeah.
It's an astonishing piece of storytelling.
Yeah. And the emotion is really, really very explicit and very clear.
And at the same time, it's restrained. I mean, when you... in the larger picture, to think of the horror of what she's describing, it could be, way over the top. But it's... like I say, it's restrained, it's subtle, it's held back.
Which is a lynching in the late 30s when the black folks were trying to push for more rights. And one of the standard techniques to try to stop that was lynchings. And this is a story about a lynching told in a very poetic way. The metaphors are powerful, but the emotion is direct and real. And it has become over time one of the great jazz classics, and certainly one of the saddest songs ever. Billie Holiday, Strange Fruit.
Southern trees bear a strange fruit, blood on the leaves and blood at the root, black bodies swinging in the southern breeze, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees. Pastoral scene of the gallant South, the bulging eyes and the twisted mouth, scent of magnolia, sweet and fresh, then the sudden smell of burning flesh. Here is a fruit for the crows to pluck, for the rain to gather, for the wind to suck, for the sun to rot, for the tree to drop. Here is a strange and bitter crop.
Wow. So keeping up with the whole idea that jazz is only for people who are deeply sad until they're happy, we're going to keep going now with, I think, one of the really incredible vocal interpretations that I've heard that you pulled out, Will, which is Tony Bennett singing "The Man That Got Away." And I got to tell you, when I first heard this, I didn't even think it was Tony Bennett. There was so much range and dynamics in his vocal that I didn't normally associate with Tony. Usually he's in a certain zone and he milks it and works it beautifully. But this one, it's just it's almost like you were talking, like Richard Burton or something, doing like, a soliloquy or something. There's so much emotion and power in the way that he tells this story.
Well, it's also a good follow-up to Strange Fruit in the sense that the story is laid out so stark, and so there's only a trio behind. Only a solo piano behind him, which is again very different for Tony.
Right.
And the way he lays it out, you could tell he'd been listening a lot to Billie Holiday. Now it's more of a man and woman kind of a tragic story rather than a great sort of the story of a people, the story of a nation.
Right.
That kind of a tragedy. But it's no less personal, and again, it's a very, like I say, it's a different side of Tony, one that's still present in his work,
right?
But one that really comes to the fore in this particular setting that you don't always see.
Yeah, and you can really feel the pain. I mean, Bill Clinton talked about it, but I mean, you can hear it here. Tony Bennett in ways that I consider revelatory as far as what he can do. Tony Bennett, the man that got away.
The night is bitter, the stars have lost their glitter, the winds grow colder, and suddenly you're older, and all because of the man that got away. No more his eager call, the writing's on the wall, the dreams you've dreamed have all gone astray. The man that won you has run off and undone you. That great beginning has seen the final inning. I don't know what happened. It's all a crazy game. No more that all-time thrill, 'cause you've been through the mill. And never a new love will be the same. Good riddance, goodbye. Every trick of his you're on to. But fools will be fools. And where's he gone to? The road gets rougher, it's lonelier and tougher. With hope you burn up, tomorrow he may turn up. There's just no let up, the livelong night and day. Ever since this world began, there is nothing sadder than a one-man woman looking for the man that got away. The man that got away.
Man,
It's amazing to me the way he begins and ends. He becomes an orchestra. You know, that whole hum thing he hums at the beginning. It's like, you know, the orchestra leading into his own self.
Right.
And then at the end, he goes back into that big air voice again. And that's, you know, the orchestral coda. But in the middle, you know, the interpretation and the directness and the use of tempo. I mean, it's almost rubato, but not quite. It keeps the tempo moving. But at the same time, it's incredibly, you know, it's happening at the rate of conversation, the speed of direct communication.
I love his enunciation too. Rougher,
Yeah, right.
tougher. You know, the way he spits it out. He makes it really rough.
He can be
and tough.
amazingly literal,
Wow.
and that's
Yeah.
a brilliant thing.
Yeah,
you know?
incredible. And you know, also I love the piano playing on both One for the Road,
Well, we've
One
got
for My Baby. I mean, the solo piano
The
accompaniment
accompaniment is amazing.
Who are these guys playing?
Bill Miller and Ralph Sharon.
Yeah.
Who are Ralph Sharon is still with us. He's
Wow. I really like they're listening, and it's almost like they're in another plane, but they're plugged in, but they're not necessarily following him. They're doing their thing. It's really nice. It's kind of the essence of jazz, how they
it
can
complements the
Yeah.
singer without necessarily
Right.
shadowing him.
Yeah.
You know, without ever like
Yeah.
Mickey Mousing him. You
and
know
in
what
a
I'm
way,
saying?
that's quintessentially jazz.
That's part of
because
it,
you're
you know?
not really necessarily locked in, but you're
doing your own thing,
you're
but it's
doing your thing,
complementary.
but it's in there, right?
You know?
Fabulous. Yes.
You're
Okay,
not subjugated to what he's doing, but at the same time, you're complimenting it in such an extraordinary way.
right. And for the listener, it's interesting because you get to separate them, and they're still there.
Yeah, it's a
which is
true
kinda
duet.
cool.
A true,
Yeah.
really a duet, not just a singer with a pianist,
That's
but a true
right.
duet of
That's right.
two great artists.
Wonderful. Okay, the next guy is somebody who was the heartthrob of millions on the level of Frank Sinatra in the 40s, and a big, handsome baritone who really was a superstar during the period of the big band singers, and who also put together one of the great all-time big bands that produced Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie, and even Monk and Miles were in his band at one time. And that's the incredible Billy Eckstine. Can you talk a little bit about the legacy of Billy Eckstine?
Well, Billy Eckstine was all that and more. He was, you know, people tend to distinguish between singers and musicians, and Eckstine is a tremendous example of somebody that was a singer his whole life. You know, he didn't go to Juilliard or anything like that, but he was a musician, and you can just hear, you know, like Sarah Vaughan. It's not a surprise that he and Sarah Vaughan were very close. You can just hear the innate musicality in his voice. You know, you can tell that when he sings a song, he knows where all the chord changes are. You know, he knows where everything is supposed to be. His singing reflects this great musical intelligence as well as an innate sense of musicality. And he just had, like Sarah Vaughan, he had the most amazingly beautiful, deep, mellifluous voice, like, you know, a voice that nobody's really heard anything like it before or since. And he really completely changed the whole idea, not just musically but culturally. And as I'm sure you're well aware, he was the first, even before Nat King Cole.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, he was the first African American singer, male or female, to come along and really be allowed to be a heartthrob,
Yeah.
to really be able to sing romantic songs in
Right.
a romantic way that
Yeah.
nobody had ever been allowed to do before, and
Yeah.
he took full advantage of it.
And he caused pandemonium wherever he went.
Oh, he was just sensational.
I mean, it
you
was
know.
Frank versus Billy. I
It
mean,
was
between
although
between
they were
the two of
friendly.
them.
They were very they
Oh,
were
they
great
were
friends.
pals,
They were
definitely,
great
and
friends.
definitely admirers of each other. But I'm just talking about with the Babes. They were like,
Well, there was one period when Sinatra was on the downswing and Eckstine was on the upswing,
right,
and very swinging.
Yeah,
and
always.
Where Sinatra had big hopes that his record of "I'm a Fool to Want You," which was about to come out, was going to
bring him back.
Was going to salvage his career.
Right.
Somehow Eckstine got the song after Sinatra recorded it, but got his record out first, and Eckstine had a bigger hit with it than Sinatra did.
Wow. And talk a little bit, Will, about why a singer would have an incredible band that included Charlie Parker, Dizzy Gillespie, Monk, Miles. why would those brilliant iconoclastic boppers, who were really pioneering a whole nother thing that was, the anti-swing music, why would they be in Billy Eckstine's band? What was it about Billy?
It was a direct outgrowth of swing, or sort of not anti-swing, but the next extension.
Right.
And there were a lot of, obviously people start somewhere, and the great big bands of, the World War II period, you can really hear the genesis of a lot of future musics. For one thing, you can hear, pop singers like Sinatra and Eckstein in these bands, and you can also hear there are a lot of like black big bands that played rhythm and blues, and there were some other big bands still that were leaning towards modern jazz.
Right.
And now Earl Father Hines happened to have a band where he attracted a lot of the guys that would go on to invent modern jazz. They all sort of coalesced in his band,
right.
And Eckstein was one of them. And when Eckstein put together his own band, all sort of the younger and more modern guys went to go with him, and that's why Miles Davis was in his band. If you can imagine Miles Davis playing in a big band. Miles Davis was in the Billy Eckstein band. Gene Ammons,
right?
So Dexter Gordon,
the root
Wardell
of
Gray.
Billy's thing was Earl Father Hines' band.
Yeah, it was an offshoot when he started his own band. But then again, a lot of the younger, more modern guys who weren't even in the Hines band went to play with Billy too.
Yeah.
But that was, at that point, this is really what Sinatra gets credit for. For a singer to go out on his own was very, very, very unprecedented.
Right.
There were very few solo singers who were working in that way. To be a real, name in 1940, 41, you had to have your own big band. And, Bob Crosby, who was Bing's brother, had a really popular big band, and he was a singer.
Right.
And there were a number of singing big band leaders. Vaughn Monroe, not very fondly remembered today, maybe, but there were a number of leaders singers who had their own bands. And so that was kind of a more established career path than just becoming a solo singer. And I would say particularly for an African American, because certain avenues were not open for him. I mean, there really wasn't much chance Billy Eckstein would get to Hollywood and star in movie musicals the way Sinatra did. Yeah. Although he did make a few. He did get
even though he had matinee good looks.
Oh, he certainly had the talent and the ability. It just was a question of the politics of the day,
Yeah. Well, I know that he was the heartthrob of millions of babes back in the day.
Black, white, Spanish,
everything.
Chinese, everything,
And his son is a good friend of mine, Ed Eckstein.
Oh, yes. Yeah, both of the Ecksteins. And Guy. Ed
and Guy. So
they're both very prominent in the music industry.
And very talented.
Yes.
So now, without further ado, we're going to listen to none other than the great,
Mr. B,
the one and only, Billy Eckstein.
My days have grown so lonely. You know I cry for you, dear, only. Why haven't you seen it? I'm all for you, body and soul. I spend my days in longing and wondering why it's me you're wronging. I tell you I mean it. I'm all for you, body and soul. I can't believe it. It's so hard to conceive it that you turn away romance. Unless there's magic, the end will be tragic. Unless I have just one more chance to prove, dear, my life a wreck you're making. You know I'm yours for just the taking.
next time.
And that's sort of an atypical record for him. He's almost singing it like Sarah Vaughan, the way he plays with the melody and the way he loops those notes at the end, building higher and higher. It's almost like he's trying to outsass sass.
Yeah.
And he does a hell of a job. I think it's one of his great recordings.
Fabulous. And we have another uncharacteristic song coming up now from one of some people think is the most beautiful male voice in the history of jazz singing. Certainly one of the biggest names, a big pop star, also a killer jazz piano player, and just all around iconic figure in the 20th century, Nat King Cole. And Nat is doing something here that really you don't get to hear much of. You hear a lot of pop schmaltz stuff from Nat typically now, or he's playing piano and not singing at all and just really ripping it because he was a hell of a keyboard player. But I find it curious that you picked this track because it's really not typical, where Nat is getting down with this track, Joe Turner's Blues. Talk a little bit about that, Will.
Well, I happen to be the world's biggest Nat King Cole fan, and Freddie Cole, too, the world's biggest Freddie Cole fan. He's a wonderful pianist singer who's probably coming to your town soon. He works constantly. But Nat King Cole was really the great, like Louis Armstrong, he was an amazingly great instrumentalist. I mean, one of the all-time best. If Nat Cole had never sung, we'd still remember him the way that we remember Bud Powell.
That trio.
Yeah, the trio was
that
just
didn't
incredible.
have a drummer, right?
No, he added, much later he added a drummer. But for the glory years, it was just piano,
guitar,
bass, and guitar.
Bass, right?
And it was a unique sound. In fact, it was so popular that within a few years, everybody was copying it. There were a million of these trios without drummers.
Right.
The Drummers Union would go on strike. You know? It was an amazing sound, the trio, the way they, the harmonies of the guitar and piano interlocking with each other. And they did some absolutely brilliant things. And that's still, the trio is still a major influence on young people like Diana Krall and John Pizzarelli. Yeah. They're all trying to go, for what the trio does. But as he gradually switched, he went from being the leader of a group to the star. And it was more of a psychological shift almost than a musical one.
Right.
As he gradually became more and more of a singer, and not just a pop singer, but a jazz singer as well.
Right.
It was a whole different mindset and a whole different thing. And it is, as you mentioned, most of the big King Cole hits were ballads, things like Mona Lisa and Smile and things like that. But
those lazy, hazy days.
Oh, that wasn't quite a ballad. I don't know what that was. That was kind of a party song, Yeah. But he could swing. Of course he could swing. And he would do some phenomenally wonderful swinging records. I mean, Love is a great example of Nat Cole swinging. And this is sort of a confluence of two things. He made one movie as an actor, and he was, at this particular time, he was outselling Frank Sinatra. He was the biggest selling male singer of the late 1950s, by far, even more than Sinatra.
Capitol Records was known as the house that Nat built.
Absolutely. And so he had a TV series for a little while, but they figured that, the progression of people like Crosby and Sinatra was into movies. So they did make one movie with Nat, and it was kind of a disaster. He really could not act very well, and it was not a great movie. Even so, they didn't give him much of a vehicle, and he didn't even make the most of what they gave him. So it was not a good idea. But it was a movie. It was a biography of the great blues composer W.C. Handy.
Wasn't it St. Louis Blues?
St. Louis Blues, it was called.
Right.
And the only great thing about it is that it had a wonderful score of all these classic W.C. Handy old-time blues numbers. Mm-hmm. And they did an album where he sings these songs with really sleek, sophisticated new arrangements by Nelson Riddle. Yeah. And it's probably my favorite Nat King Cole record. I mean, it's a brilliant album. And a few years after that, it gets better. He did a live album. He finally, for years and years, they were waiting. Live albums were a new thing. It took Sinatra. Sinatra didn't do a live album until The Sands, which is, 1965. It was way after everybody else. And they were waiting, all these to see when
technology.
As the technology caught up, Ella Fitzgerald was really the first to do lots of live albums, and then Mel Torme was right after her, and really didn't get to Sinatra till way later. Mm-hmm. But Nat King Cole, everybody was waiting for him to do a live album. And one of the tracks that, one of the arrangements that he included on the album was from this other record I mentioned, the St. Louis Blues album. Mm-hmm. And he was using the song Joe Turner's Blues by W.C. Handy as the climax of his show, like this big kicking number. And like you say, it's the confluence of it. Nat Cole doing a up-tempo swinging blues, in a nightclub in Las Vegas in an arrangement by Nelson Riddle. Just all the components are very unique, and it's a very unique and extraordinary track that I always get off on.
Yeah, I think it's very illuminating to show this side of Nat
it's,
that we don't normally hear, and that Nat can really get down.
It's the kind of thing that Joe Williams would do with Basie, but
Right.
it's his own thing. It does not sound like a Basie arrangement. It does not
That's
sound
right.
like a Joe Williams kind of a vocal.
Right.
But it's the kind of thing that's the combination you would expect to see doing this. You know?
Right. And Joe Turner is a mythic figure. in
Yeah, it's
black
not
culture.
Big Joe Turner.
Right.
I mean, Big Joe Turner is Joe Turner, but
Yeah.
but he's not alluding to the famous blues singer Big Joe Turner.
Yeah, no, but I was thinking of August Wilson. and
Yes,
his
like
whole
Joe
thing.
Turner's come and gone,
Yeah,
right.
that whole idea.
It's a symbolic
Yeah,
figure
he's
in
a mythic
African,
figure
a
in the-
folkloric
Yeah,
figure.
right. So here we go with W.C. Handy, Joe Turner, who is the Black Paul Bunyan.
You'll never miss the water till your well runs dry. Till your well runs dry. You'll never miss Joe Turner till he says goodbye. Sweet babe, I'm gonna leave you, and the time ain't long. No, the time ain't long. If you don't believe I'm leaving, count the days I'm gone. You will be sorry from your heart. Sorry till your heart. Someday when you and I must part, and every time you hear a whistle blow, hear that steamboat blow, you'll hate the day you lost Joe. You will be sorry from your heart. Sorry to your heart. Someday when you and I must part, and every time you hear a whistle blow, hear that steamboat blow, you'll hate the day you lost Joe. Yes, you'll hate the day you lost Joe. You will be sorry from your heart. Sorry to your heart. Someday when you and I must part, and every time you hear a whistle blow, hear that steamboat blow, you'll hate the day you lost Joe. Yes, you'll hate the day you lost Joe. You will be sorry from your heart. Sorry to your heart. Someday when you and I must part, and every time you hear a whistle blow, hear that whistle hate the day you lost your Joe. Yes, you'll hate the day you lost your Joe.
Joe Turner may have had the blues, but Nat King Cole was sounding pretty happy there.
Well, it's a point that you can't make often enough in the sense of blues as a musical form that is often joyful and jubilant. It's not always about singing sad, lonely songs, you know, because
Right.
you woke up this morning feeling bad. The blues are just as often exuberant and joyous. And
Absolutely.
Even when it's about a song of separation that, you know, Joe Turner's leaving you, still you can swing about it. you
Well,
know?
that was the whole purpose of the blues, was to
Exactly.
figure out how to deal with that pain and
Exactly.
get another angle on it emotionally. So, Will, it's been a lot of fun. We're going to wrap up this segment
With a singer who certainly knows a lot about the blues.
yeah, but who is not singing it on this song.
Yeah, this is
Which is another one of your,
Yeah.
you know, against the grain choices that are wonderful in really showing artists in a new light in a fuller way than what we normally hear from them.
This is a track that it's Dinah Washington, and again, like you say, I wanted to have Nat King Cole singing a fast swinging blues because that's not what we associate with him.
Right.
And Dinah Washington, I wanted to have her doing a kind of mambo novelty, again, because it's not what we associate with her, and it shows the range of her talents, and it also shows that she could take, you know, a dumb little song like this and really make it into something special.
Yeah.
Incidentally, the band behind Dinah on this is Quincy Jones.
Oh,
And there's a young singer named Nikki Yanofsky she's mainly like Ella Fitzgerald reincarnated, but for some reason she gravitated toward this song, and she does it in concert. And if you can imagine anybody going around in
Wow.
2013 singing "Relax, Max," you
Yeah.
know? But she does it, and it's very cute. It's very adorable. She certainly learned a lot from Dinah Washington.
yeah.
So.
Any gorgeous babe who is really trying to handle some guy who's all over her should listen to this song.
Exactly. The music is very educational.
Yeah, right. Relax, Max. Dinah Washington.
Relax, Max. Your nerves are just like jumping jacks, Max. Your heart is thumping with a crazy sound. Hear it pound, a bumping, 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 jumping up and down. Stay cool, fool. Just take it easy, that's the rule, fool. The evening hasn't even started yet. So my pet, control yourself, don't get upset. Don't think I'm cold if I say you're too bold. I've been fooled by that moon up above. I want your kiss just as you want my kiss, but a kiss is no kiss without love.